Hi there, my name is Simjit Danoa, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how mechanical engineering can contribute to exploration and development in the Arctic. In particular, I'll be discussing how mechanical engineering can affect the development and exploration of oil and gas in the Arctic. I'll cover three main topics. First, I'll talk a little bit about the oil and gas in the Arctic and the exploration that is currently going on. Second, I'll discuss two technologies that are currently being used in the Arctic and talk a little bit about what they do. And then lastly, I will talk about how these technologies can be improved and incorporated with oil and gas exploration to further develop oil and gas in the Arctic. Drilling began in 1968 when Arco and Standard Oil drilled a well into the Prudhoe Bay field on Alaska's North Slope, which is the largest oil field in North America. The production began in 1977 after constructing the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. So that's a bit of the history behind oil and gas exploration in the Arctic, and currently it's estimated that there are 412 billion barrels of oil equivalent in undiscovered resources in the Arctic. So there's a lot of oil up there, and essentially we just need a way now to get through to that oil, start drilling it. A lot of the drilling will be done using offshore rigs, but there will probably be some onshore rigs as well. On a side note, actually, Shell got approval from the US government to begin drilling in 2012, and so they're likely going to be the first company to begin production in earnest in the Arctic for oil and gas. So it's a pretty relevant topic. It's happening right now, and it's only going to get developed greater in the near future. For my second topic, I'll talk a little bit about the technologies that are currently being used in the Arctic, starting with robots. These robots are used to map the terrain in the Arctic and also used to scout out areas where there are a lot of crevices so that exploration teams that are scouting out the area, mapping it, they're not going to fall into these crevices because the robots will be able to give them a heads up and some warning. Um, so they're currently being used by researchers a lot. These robots are actually designed by undergraduate students at Dartmouth University's Thayer School of Engineering. Another neat bit of technology that's being used right now actually by European research groups is buildings that can lift up and down to avoid being buried by the snowfall. In the winter times in the Arctic, there's a lot of snowfall, a lot of snow drifts as well, and a lot of conventional buildings that are kind of built on the ground, built up from the ground, get buried in these snow drifts. So what these lifting buildings do then is when there's a snow drift, the people inside the building can choose to lift the building up so that the snow goes underneath the building, and then the building can just rest on top of the snow drift as opposed to being stuck in the middle of it, making it easier to get out and increasing the lifespan of the building since it doesn't need to be dug out. And the way this works is there are essentially four or more stilts on the bottom of the building that can be used to lift the building up or down with hydraulics. And so that's how these lifting buildings work. For my last topic, I'm going to talk about how we can use robots in lifting buildings and how we can incorporate these into oil and gas exploration and development. The robots specifically can be used for oil and gas exploration. They can be used to scout different terrain, sometimes terrain that would be dangerous for humans to go to, or even if they need to do long-term monitoring of the terrain to get an idea of the kind of weather patterns there, the patterns of the ground there. So the robots will make it a lot easier to gather intel on the terrain and hence help find where oil might be as well. The lifting buildings can help because while there will be offshore drilling, like I mentioned before, there will probably be a lot of drilling done on the ground as well. And so they will also face the problem of being snowed in. And with expensive engineering equipment used to drill oil, you'd imagine you wouldn't want to have to replace that often, having to dig it out. So lifting buildings will help increase the longevity of a lot of that equipment. In conclusion, there's a lot of oil and gas that's up in the Arctic. We can use engineering technologies such as robots and lifting buildings, as well as other different types of engineering technologies to help explore where the oil and gas is and then develop it after that. Thank you for listening.